All right, we're going to get right into it. This is the Used Car Manager's Ultimate Playbook, and we're going to be doing Chapter 6 today. Let's get right into it. Chapter 6. All right, so holding costs. This is, we've talked about it a lot in the previous chapters, but now we're just going to kind of break it down a little bit further just so that you really understand the math behind it. And let's get into the first one. So why holding cost matters. Gross feels good, turns keeps you alive. You lose more net through time than you ever will at the desk. Think about that for a minute. Everyone loves talking about gross. 3,500 a copy sounds great until you realize how much of that you give back because your car's sat too long. Holding cost is a silent killer in every used car department. You don't feel it today, but it bleeds out of your net every single hour those units sit. And so rule number one, gross makes you feel good, turn keeps you alive. So you got to make sure, I've seen dealers where they got a big net month, they've sold a lot of cars, but then they've got 50 cars over 60. And every one of those cars is just costing them money. So you've got to be strategic on how you turn your cars and turn your inventory. And we're going to break that down here. So holding cost is the total expense your dealership absorbs just to have that car sit on the lot, whether it sells or not. So you got to understand what your daily burn per car is, your floor plan interest, depreciation, insurance, payroll burden, opportunity cost, all of it. That's the part that when you talk about opportunity cost, that's the money tied up in that car that could be producing profit elsewhere. So just think about, those vehicles that are aging on you, or your recon team or used car team is just not moving that car fast enough. Like you don't have a process for salespeople to check keys in, to get them to service, to get them to detail. You got to make sure that turn to inventory is, you got to make sure that turn to inventory is speed. In short, it's your daily burn rate per vehicle, and until you measure it, you're managing blind. Does everyone on your team know what that is? I'd do that today. I'd make sure everyone on my team knows exactly what my holding cost per car is, so they understand when they're appraising these cars, they know, look, if this is a market day supply of 100 days, don't buy it unless you buy it super cheap. So whatever you think it's worth, back it up whatever your daily holding costs. If it's a 100-day market day supply, and in your average holding cost, daily holding cost is $40 a day times 100, it's $4,000. So you just back it up $4,000, and that's what you should be in that car for. And even then, that's still not the best formula because you still might keep it for 200 days. So the holding cost formula, let's use the proper formula to get your true holding cost per day. Okay, so step one, and this is, pretty basic right here. So year-to-date used expense minus year-to-date variable expense. Once you do that, then you get divided by your divided by 12, or however many months you're at. So today you divide it by last month's numbers, you divide it by 11, right? So then that's equals your monthly fixed cost. Then you divide it by average inventory. So if you've got 100 cars or 133 cars, so you just multiply that times 1.33, and then divide it by days open. So in the example we use, it's $46 a day. And so when you think about 4.8 million, just a rough number, minus 2.8 million in variable expense, that's 2 million. So then you divide the number of months in the year. So in this example, divided by 12, that's 166,667. No pun intended. Average fixed cost per month. And then you multiply that times monthly sales is 1 times 1.33. Assumes your lot carries 1.33 your monthly sales volume in inventory. So if you have 100 monthly sales times 1.33, that's 133 units in stock. So divide step 2 by step 3, you get your holding cost per month. So 166,667 divided by 133 equals 1254 per month. And then you divide that by the days that you're open. So typically it's 27 days. So you do 1254 divided by 27 equals $46 per day per car. So that's what your holding cost per day. And you think about that's just today, depending on your floor plan interest. Floor plan interest, I remember the days of when we'd get credits and you'd be, high-fiving each other. So right now it's expensive, especially if you've got those premium brands and you've got a lot of inventory in stock. So those days in inventory, it starts turning into real money at some point. Here's the impact of $46 per day. So let's put that number in perspective. So 40 cars times 10 days, that's 18,400 loss. That's 18% of your monthly net gone, depending on the size of volume, of course. So time is more expensive than any bad deal. That amount of money, you just start putting it so if you're selling 100 cars a month, 3,500 average gross, that's 350,000 in total gross. Your net to gross is 30%, so you're netting $105,000. Now here's where time kills. If 40 cars sit an extra 10 days, waiting on recon photos, price adjustments, here's what that costs. So 40, so that's 18,400 burns. And when you think about that, that's 18% of the total net if you're doing 105. And it's invisible. You don't see it on the statement. It's not on an invoice. It's just quietly eats your profit every day those cars don't move. So rule number 2, the longer your inventory sits, the less control you have over your outcome. And the compounding effect is slowly. So let's get to the next one. So slow turn increases stock. Extra 35 units times 46, and momentum compounds both ways. That compounding effect, you start putting the math to it, it'll make you crazy. So a holding cost doesn't kill just one deal, it compounds across your lot. Example, let's say your turn slows by 0.5 times per month. That's from 1.8 down to 1.3. That means you're holding roughly 35 extra cars at any given time. So 35 cars times 46 times 30 days, that's 48,000 in monthly expense just from a slower turn. And that's just 35 cars. Multiply that times 12, that's $580,000 a year in lost opportunity. I get in the habit of annualizing every one of these deals. So you start looking at it and you start, whatever your expenses cost, then you start saying, okay, what's that times 12? And every time you do that, you start thinking, wow, what can I do to do a better job? That's the money that could have gone straight to your bottom line or into additional inventory that moves faster and produces gross. So turn is a profit multiplier. Slow inventory isn't neutral, it's negative. The break-even day, break-even equals gross divided by holding costs. So 3,500 divided by 46 equals 76 days. So after day 76, gross is gone. Everything after that is a loss. And that's assuming you make the 3,500. That's what's that look like? Every deal, if you're at 76 days, you're likely losing $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on the model. You could even be losing $6,000 or $7,000, $8,000. So you got to make sure that once you roll into that holding cost, that's your real loss. So rule number 4, you don't lose gross at the desk, you lose it in time. All right, so now here we are at ROI per day. This is a better metric. So instead of looking at gross per unit, start measuring gross ROI per day. So you do gross ROI divided by day equals front gross divided by days in stock. So example, you make $3,500 on a sold in 30-day car. So 3,500, that's 100 divided by 30. Your ROI is per day. And so if that car lasts 60 days, it only makes $58 a day. And that's borderline break even. So if it's making $58 a day, but holding cost is $46 a day, your really net gain is only $12. So that's one easy way to look at it. So yes, so if you think about it, if your average is $3,500 and your average days in stock is 28 days, you may want to look at that average days in stock and figure out how to shorten that time. And so rule number 5, you're not making $3,500, you're making whatever's left after the clock takes its cut. And here's a 3-step fix. If your holding cost is eating your profit, here's how to fix it fast. Measure it weekly. Stop calculating holding costs once a quarter. Start tracking it every week. Use a simple dashboard showing average days in stock, cost per day, total aging cars, and then you start building accountability around speed. Every department touches the clock: service, detail, photos, pricing. Make everyone responsible for keeping time down. Tie pay to velocity. Managers, buyers, and recon all move faster when pay plans reward it. Pay spiffs for 3-day frontline readiness or 30-day turn completions. And reality is, I would hire one, and this isn't even, I didn't even put this in the book. I'd make sure that I hired one key player, inventory manager, that was responsible and tied to these metrics in every one of the steps. Like, I had a great inventory manager that literally would push every part of the process through. When he'd look at the desk log, looked at trades, held salespeople accountable to make sure they stocked in their trades, to going through service, making sure the recon manager, the used car recon techs were all getting the inventory, they're getting their inspections in a timely manner, every step to photos, to detail, everything. This person was the key player in that role. If you think about that position alone, doesn't matter what you pay them, but, you know, 8-10 grand a month, whatever you land on. If you focus on that, how much money just by getting all your cars to the front line faster, quicker, and ready to go, presentable online, your days in inventory, it's going to immediately reduce the time in inventory. And that holding cost is how you can justify it. This person can get you selling your entire inventory in an average from 28 days to 20 days. You shave off 8 days per car times 100. The math is there. You can justify it. So rule number 6, what gets rewarded gets repeated, speed included. So here are the key metrics: average days in stock, under 35, holding cost per day, gross ROI per day, 45-day units, under 10%. If you can hold that line, you'll have a healthy inventory. Your net to gross is going to be improving, and ultimately everybody wins. So here's a manager's daily checklist. You have to have a daily checklist, weekly and monthly. So daily, review aging report and flag any 30-day units. Go inspect those cars, see what's going on. I do that every 15 days. So first 15 days, go out there, what happened to those 15-day cars, what happened to the 30-day cars, what happened to the 45-day cars, and go through it. And reality is, doesn't matter how big your inventory is, you need to do it. So weekly, calculate average holding costs per car, compare ROI per day by segment. And I think that's where a lot of managers forget, by segment. So if you've got, you know, Corollas and RAV4s and whatever you have in your inventory, find out the segment, what your average gross per car is, and find out if you want to, that's your real quick cheat, is like stock all the ones, the majority of the ones. It sounds, you know, pretty basic and, common sense, but a lot of people, you just don't know what you don't know. So those average vehicles, if you're averaging 2,400 or $3,000 on certain vehicles, try to stock more of those and less of the other ones that aren't making you as much money. At the end of the day, you need to control your own destiny. So adjust pricing on slow movers before day 45. Don't wait till day 45, because then it's just going to age even longer. And monthly audit all units over 60 days. Quantify loss net from aging inventory. And set next month's turn goal and monitor it weekly. You stay on top of this every month. This is how you get a performing store. The bottom line, the holding cost is the one number that tells you the truth about your used car operation. It's the difference between running a used car department and managing a parking lot. Once you know your per day cost, every decision becomes clearer. When to buy, when to reprice, and when to move on. Final rule, you don't control profit until you control your time. The managers who measure holding costs don't just protect their gross, they multiply it. The ones who don't, they spend their careers chasing the next car to make up for the one that sat too long.